We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
We no longer live in a world of nations and ideologies, Mr. Beale. The world is a business, Mr. Beale.
Go on without me. Just go.
A good soldier never leaves a man behind.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness.
Life finds a way.
All right, welcome to Silver Screen Biases, where we dig into a critically acclaimed movie and evaluate the truth claims within it. I'm Nelson.
This is Jeff.
And we have with us Doc Dixon. This week, we're going over the movie
The Prestige. 2006.
Now, Doc, The Prestige is about stage magic. Do you have any experience with that?
Yes, how I make my living. Other than that, not really. But
other than every day. The first I heard you was on Tom Woods 2000. I was there in the crowd. And
cool.
I've heard you a few times on his show, on Godarchy, on Libertarian Christian Institute. And for me, you were kind of a unicorn for this particular episode. I couldn't think of anyone who would be more perfect.
I'm flattered, and my goal is for afterwards for you to not feel that way.
Challenge accepted.
All right, before we get into the show, just a quick ad spot for Tuttle Twins, a children's book series, television series, podcast series. Our links in the show notes. Check them out. Doc, have you ever heard of Tuttle Twins?
Yeah, I have books on my shelves.
Do your kids read them?
Yes, more so I read them to them a lot, but yeah.
Okay. What do they think?
They like Dad's story time, and they dig the books. They're good books.
Good. So I know most of the books, or if not all the books, are kind of children's digestible versions of great works of literature. Have any of those books caused you to go back and read the book that inspired it?
That's a great question. No, but that has less to do with the Tuttle Twins books, which are great, and more to do with how big my to-do list is for reading. It's like, Tuttle Twins, get in line.
I had to make a rule for myself this year that I wouldn't buy a new book until I finished one that I'd already bought. And I think that's going to really, really trim my library budget this year.
Yeah, I wish there was some type of thing where when you bought the book, you also bought the time to read it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it for our Tuttle Twins spot. Check it out. It's in the show notes. When you click through there, they know that we sent you, and we get a small kickback. Mm-hmm. It costs nothing additional for you. If you would like to sponsor us or donate to us and support us, without getting anything back, there's also a link in the show notes to buymeacoffee.com, and that goes right into our pockets.
Right.
So, Doc, tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, that broad question.
I've got some specifics if you need some.
Give me some specifics.
All right. So
it's like SpongeBob SquarePants. 2 hours later.
We've mentioned the last couple shows that you were coming on, that you fooled Penn and Teller. You've been at the White House late night show, and this year you're the January cover of the Society of American Magicians magazine. I saw that post on Facebook.
Yeah, that was very cool. I was very, very blessed to have that. I mean, all of that to happen, but specifically the magazine thing. It really makes up for not being on the cover of Tiger Beat when I was a teenager. Take that, Scott Baio.
He's got nothing on you.
Yeah, you're darn right, Sparky.
So one thing that we engage with a lot in this show, just because of the subject matter of the show, is our own biases. We try to be as open and honest with ourselves about what our biases are. As I've said 100 times, I'm right-wing anarchist, right? I think that free trade is all that you really need for governance. We don't really need a government. Jeff is much more on the Overton window centrist kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm open to any conversation, and I don't adhere to any specific standard or like structured grouping of.
For sure. And you're also kind of disillusioned with voting, but you think that there's a use for government.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us, where do you kind of land on political biases?
Ideally, I'm an ANCAP,
Mm-hmm.
but I'll not but in the sense of but here's my exception, but more so in the real world. I'd love to see as close as we can get to that as we can. You know, I'm not going to make the perfect the enemy of the good, but yeah, I'm an ANCAP.
Sure. So you'd be happy with a minarchist watch night state, but ideally no government at all.
Compared to what we have now.
If we were even constitutional, I'd be thrilled.
Yeah, really. I mean, I say that between the three of us and the NSA guy that's listening.
and all three of our listeners.
Yeah.
And then the other kind of thing that really makes up biases, makes up your worldview in kind of our opinion, apart from politics, is religious beliefs. Both Jeff and I come from Methodist background, really. The church that we both attend now is Methodist. We're both adult Christians. I kind of left as a young adult, but came back. Jeff, you've been for pretty consistently, right?
Yeah, born and raised, born Baptist, and then go to a Free Methodist church now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been pretty much part of my DNA since I've been born. Yeah.
And Doc, where do you kind of land on religious things?
But before I answer that, and I will, I can't help but think I was listening to a previous episode of yours where you asked these, questions, which are interesting, and they just smack of the next question is, and what is the speed of a southbound Capistrano, or whatever it is? I forget. Not a Capistrano, that's a city. Whatever. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, darn it. I've lost so much nerd cred. Oh, no. Not Capistrano. Okay. I should have just answered your question.
I can cut that if you need.
No. Warts and all, keep it in. My theology is Reformed. Yeah, big fan of the Heidelberg Catechism. Catechisms and Confessions, that's probably my favorite.
Okay. We're so glad to have you here, Doc. And I want to mention it early. We're going to mention it again later. February 4th, you'll be in Northeast Ohio, which is stomping grounds for most of our listeners. I'll be there, second row. So, Jeff, you have some production notes on this movie.
Yes. So, The Prestige, 2006, 2 hours, 10 minutes long. This is the first of 7 Christopher Nolan films in the top 250 on IMDb. 7 films on IMDb top 250. This is the first one we're reviewing, not necessarily the first one in order. This one ranks on IMDb as of today's recording, number 41 on the IMDb top 250. It gets 8.5 out of 10 stars. On the Rotten Tomatoes site, it is 76 tomato meter and 92% audience.
Okay. I think Christopher Nolan tends to do better with audiences than critics.
I would agree. Critics tend to be a little stricter on his movies, or a little more ruthless.
And we're far from movie experts. We're more popcorn flick fanboys than anything.
I will say, and I mentioned this in the last episode, that I wasn't aware that this was his movie.
Yeah, your favorite director.
Sorry, Christopher. But yeah, I was excited to see it. I knew it was the next thing I know, I'm looking it up. Christopher Nolan, I was like, holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I was even more excited. So it doesn't fall into my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. It didn't woo me that much into the number one spot, but I did enjoy it. It was definitely worth the watch. The budget for this movie was $40 million. And what does that round up to today with gross inflation?
Yeah, so $40 million in 2006 dollars is $59 million in 2023 dollars.
In opening weekend, U.S. and Canada, it made $14 million, $801,000. So
and $53 million gross, which is pretty unsuccessful for a movie.
Yeah,
you want to double that. Is this your first time watching this movie, Doc?
No, sir. No. When it came out, and also The Illusionist came out with Edward Norton, they came out about the same time, and I almost. Frankly, a good motivation, or part of my motivation for watching them both, was just to have an answer to all the people that said, "So, what'd you think of that movie?"
Yep. We've been preparing for this moment.
I watched it again. this afternoon, to bring my A game.
Appreciate that. Was it better or worse than you remembered overall?
Well, I know in some ways as a performing magician of many years, in some ways that kind of makes me, I'm one of the guys to ask about it.
Right.
On the other hand, it's the complete opposite of that. It makes me not the guy to ask about it.
In what way?
Well, back when I was a teenager, I was an emergency medical technician.
Okay.
And we would refer the show Emergency, which is like a show about paramedics and all that. We would jokingly refer to it as training films.
Okay.
The episodes. And you could just see things. What are they like? I'm getting in the weeds here, but they should have a mask on him. Why do they have a nasal cannula? He's having a heart attack, for Pete's sake. Whatever. The tech issues would slap us in the face. Well, I'm way deeper than magic than I was back into that.
Right.
But putting that aside for a moment, this is a term I see see frequently, far more frequently than I say. So I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation. Due et machina, the Ghost in the Machine.
Mm-hmm.
The Wizard of Oz is a classic movie to most people, but to me, I watch it. I'm like, wait, what do you mean it was all a dream? What kind of hack writing is this? We're low on budget. We got to figure out a way to end this. I know, dream. And the third act.
Like, Who Killed JR?
No, that was classic. Hush your mouth. See, the difference is, from a showbiz standpoint, that put butts in seats.
That's true.
But the third act, when it goes from this kind of the show business story to sci-fi,
yeah,
I didn't jump with it.
Did you feel it cheated? It was lazy story writing?
I don't want to say it's lazy. I wouldn't presume to insult the author, because who knows what was left out. It didn't feel. Again, I'm watching this again, and preparing for the podcast, and I have 6 sons at home.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I'm watching it with a circus around me,
Yeah.
But I didn't feel the sense of like the ending of the movie, that not the Tesla ending, but the ending that was real and actual to the characters, that was foreshadowed throughout the movie.
Yes.
The Tesla thing, I just didn't buy into it.
Sure.
And if you want a movie that's I think more show businessy and more magic, it is, except for the fact that it involves a crazed killer. Magic with Anthony Hopkins.
Okay.
You ever seen it?
I've not even heard of it, but the trailer.
Great flick. I think it's late 70s. Anthony Hopkins plays a ventriloquist who really is not going anywhere. And then then a year later, he's a magician who's not going anywhere. Then a year later, he introduced this ugly, obnoxious ventriloquist dummy into his act. And that was the hook, and he just took off. And then he goes nuts.
Okay.
But there was just, back in that, historically speaking, there was competition amongst magicians on the big stage like that.
Yeah.
The now classic Sawing a Woman in Half was, for the most part, there were things before it that were reminiscent of it, but for the most part was invented by a guy by the name of P.T. Selbit. And he was ripped off. And there were magicians combating each other with different versions of the trick, but it wasn't the espionage that's in that movie of, how's he doing the trick. Oh, and the thing about keeping secrets from his wife, we do spoilers on this show, don't we?
Of course, yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, it's an old movie anyway. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, I've kept from you that I have a twin brother.
Yeah.
Stop.
Half the time that I'm with you, I'm him.
Yes, stop.
Yeah, it's there's all kinds of questions that come from that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this before we continue to break down this movie. Do you have you mentioned the Anthony Hopkins one. Do you have a favorite movie based on or including a magician?
I tell you, one of it's total parody and satire, but not a movie, but Job from Arrested Development.
Yes.
I have not seen
Oh,
It's good. It's good,
it's hilarious. It's tough. I would love to see portrayed on the screen what the business is really like. And there were elements of that I felt in The Prestige, but even the terminology to the movie. What is it? First there's this, and then there's the turn, and then there's the prestige.
Yeah, the pledge, the turn, and the prestige.
Okay, I know this is just an audio podcast, but we're on video for this. See all these books behind me? Okay, 90% of those are magic books.
Okay.
Magic has a rich literary history. They had to make up something.
Yeah.
But in the book, and I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place here, but in the movie, the scene where he says, "You don't want to kill doves? Get out of magic."
Like there's no other tricks that can be done.
Well, when I saw that, I remember when I originally saw it, just laughing so hard because I'm not a dove magician, but thinking of the poor sap that's out doing his dove act, after someone's seen this movie. Now, an interesting thing about it in the original part of it, when he makes the dove disappear and he says the prestige is you have to make the dove come back.
Yeah.
I have a client of many years in an amusement park in Pennsylvania. You being in Ohio may know it, Kennywood.
Yeah.
Okay. Been their magician, just finished my 11th year. And one of the seasons I do for them is the Halloween season. Well, one weekend several years ago during the Halloween season, I'm thinking it's Halloween. Okay, I'll make the rabbit disappear. In the box that I had put him, I put him in this box. The box had a ringer on it with a crank, like the kind you would old-fashioned wringing out clothes.
Yeah.
So I put this cute little bunny in there. I turn the crank, and a rabbit skin comes out the front of it, up the ringers. Then I open it up and dump out, which turn out to be chicken bones. I dump out these chicken bones. It took me one show to learn. You do not do that without making the bunny come back. No. And I'm not talking kids. I'm talking adults. I'm done with the show. Where's the bunny?
You saw it. I put it through the ringer.
You saw? Yeah, there it is. Pet the pelt. What can I help you with? And that was like, wow. I try to be a quick study, and that took about one night to learn. Nope, the bunny comes back.
That's interesting.
So that part of the movie was accurate.
Yeah,
I can write more.
I got a million questions. I don't know where to start. So you thought that intro, the introductory monologue by
Michael Caine,
the ingenieur, is that a real industry term, by the way? Ingenieur?
I've never heard it.
Okay. All right. I figured it was either super common or totally made up.
And, I'm fine with a bit of that. Like I said, I'm not the best guy to answer these questions. Like my nephew, he's a retired Baltimore City police officer.
Okay.
And growing up, he, and still is, very much into comic books.
Mm-hmm.
I will watch one of the Marvel Universe movies one way. And I'm like, oh, that was a fun time. The kids liked it. It's
right.
fun. Passed an afternoon. Well, I talked to him about it. Oh, you'd think it was, Masada. I don't, just, obscure reference for the more literate listeners of the show. You would think it was some massacre.
Yeah.
He just can't stomach it.
Mm-hmm. It's you murdered my baby boy.
Yeah, his expertise just is like this heavy of comic bookdom.
Right.
There's a heavy cloud over it. Yeah, and I enjoy Michael Caine as an actor, Christian Bale, Hugh Jackman, all great. But
that was stacked.
Yeah,
I'm too close. The deck was stacked. our little magic pun there.
I said cast, but yeah, it was.
Missed opportunity for a magic
I
fun.
do. I did miss. I missed
The cast was stacked. I'm sorry. I automatically heard Jack. See, that's what I mean.
I don't want to take credit from that. Yeah.
Now, one of the lines, I wrote down a handful of lines from the movie that really stuck out to me. Total devotion to his art, total self-sacrifice. That's Borden talking to Algier about the Chinese magician
At the beginning.
Who was really a white guy.
Yeah.
Historically, yeah, he was. Oh shoot! I think the name is Robinson. I can't think of the first name.
So he's inspired by a real character, a real person?
Yeah. There is 100 years ago, and going back, there's a very wide history of Europeans, Brits doing the faux Asian thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
A long and rich history.
Yeah, this is
Well, it's a history. I won't say how rich it is.
Yeah. Chung Ling Soo was a stage character created by William Ellsworth Robinson, a white man who disguised himself as a Chinese man to cash in on audiences' enthusiasm for the exotic. Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Yeah.
No, I mean, and that little scenario in the movie set up essentially the whole long con that Christian Bale was doing.
Both of them, because Algier was actually Lord Caldwell.
That's true. That's true. They were both playing each other from the very beginning. Yeah.
Algier had a fake American accent.
Yep.
Borden had two people sharing his life, and and then of course with the next bit where we have the little boy say, "Where's his brother?" about the disappeared bird.
You know what I'd like to see? An outtake where the twin says, "I don't know. Why don't you get fake fingers?" I don't know why we got to go this way where I can get mine cut off. You get fake fingers, and then, I get hollow fake fingers that I'll put over my real fingers. Huh?
And they fake having full fingers for another few months before what's-her-name's character says, "Hey, you're missing fingers. That's going to sell the piece even better," right? And it's like it never crossed his mind that he cut off the fingers and it wasn't for the show.
Yeah.
Now, that level of dedication to the magic of it, is that something that is still quite common in the industry?
Cutting off fingers? No.
But like living it as a persona, like with WWE, you see the heels when they're out in public, they still act like a heel.
Yeah.
They call it the kayfabe? Do magicians have any amount of like putting on that persona even when they're not on stage?
Well, pardon me for correcting you, but kayfabe doesn't really exist anymore.
Yeah,
that's going back 30 years. And I love a slight libertarian segue here.
Sure.
Part of the reason for breaking kayfabe was that Vince McMahon had to pay some type of sports tax in New York.
Yep.
And he said, "Nope, we're a show."
Yep, it's all fake.
And I heard this reporter once, it was some documentary about the WWF at the time, now WWE. He was saying, well, the only reason he did that was to pay less taxes. And he was saying this like, that's a bad thing. Like, what is wrong with you?
Hey, you got to pay your fair share, Vince McMahon. We live in a society, right?
Yeah.
I think of someone like Chris Angel or like the street musician. He does shows and stuff, but like, I've never seen him without this like angsty. I've never seen him in person, but like every time he's in front of a camera or he's on the street or he's like, he does have a persona, and I'm curious like if he's like that off the camera, like because like part of his gimmick is being this bad boy, like
Rudy.
Yeah, it's like that's the closest thing I could think of that I've seen in magic in my minimal experience of someone who's like, is that part of his act? His down to his clothes, down to his just the way he talks, his demeanor, like I don't know. I just
how much of this is performance,
right? Like that's the only thing I could think of that was maybe the same.
Doc strikes me from like because I've listened to you a lot on podcasts and other things, and I've interacted with you several times on Facebook, and I've seen your show a couple of different times, and you strike me as somebody that the character, the personality you have on stage is very much just an embellishment of who you are, but it's who you are.
Pretty much. Yeah, it's an amplified version. I mean, I'm doing that, on most of the podcasts I'm on, including this one. I know I'm expected to be funny, so I'm going to do that. I'll mispronounce another word, raison d'etre, or whatever it is, that I'm here. Dang it, I got to work on it. That book smarts, not talking smarts. Yeah, I mean, my character on stage is, my opening of my show is kind of a brief bio, hi, husband of one, father of seven. So that's kind of where the character comes from too. And I could see where if someone is their character on stage is really out there, beyond the norm, it would be tough for them to be it would be tougher for them to interact normally. I'll tell you, Teller, the question I'm asked, which kind of always makes me chuckle, Teller of Penn and Teller, does he ever talk? Does he talk off stage? I'm like, yeah. Affable, articulate guy. We just
interviews of him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just, that's the thing he doesn't do.
I've always admired those guys. I've always been intrigued by them. Like, and I know Penn has come out with some faith perspective, or there's some videos on YouTube with Penn talking about like the opposite of what the three of us mutually believe faith wise and stuff. But like he still seems like one of those people who's just like, yeah, I'll talk to you. I'll hang out. Like, I've always been intrigued by his just down to earth personality. At least that's how he
comes off as very genuine.
He does. He comes off very authentic, no matter where. Penn specifically.
We won't make you speak poorly of him.
Yeah. Like, I've always been a fan of those guys.
Yeah, I think my interactions with them on the show and backstage, having appeared in the show because I got the trophy. Very gracious, and just the whole tenor of the show. I mean, if you compare it to some of the stuff on AGT where, an act, they got some act on stage, which has been working it for 30 years and making a good living. And now their AGT sob story. And they come on and they do their thing. And they're often treated disrespectfully, and Fool Us is the opposite of that. And that's I'm far from the first person to say that. I think there was either in the Wall Street Journal or New York Times a review of the show citing that very point, how different it is from other showcasing shows.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we wouldn't be talking if it weren't for Fool Us. So because Fool Us led me to Tom Woods,
right?
Led me to a broader libertarian world.
Yeah.
Oh, I should clarify. I already knew of Tom before that, but it's kind of an interesting coincidence here. Or Providence, you Methodist. Providence. My episode where I fooled Penn and Teller aired 2019, September 9th. Keep meaning to look this up, but either it was that day before, day after, Tom sent out an email about Penn Jillette and wanting to get him on the show kind of thing. Right. And I replied, well, I don't know if I can hook you up with that, but I just fooled them on their show. And then Tom replied back, you want to be a guest? And bing, bang, boom.
Gillette's done some stuff talking about his libertarian philosophy, and he's a little bit more acceptable opinion libertarian than I am. But him and I share a lot of views on taxation and government, and I think he's just a little less radical, but at least he presents himself that way.
I would check out his an interview he did a few months back with Nick Gillespie on Reason.
Okay.
I'm not sure, and I don't wish to speak for him, so I'm just speaking to my impression. I'm not sure how much he identifies as a libertarian.
Okay.
Currently, but
I know he certainly did before.
Yes.
And I'll make sure to link that in the show notes. Now there's a lot of foreshadowing in this movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, and Christopher Nolan's pretty good at. I mean, that's pretty typical for his movies.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ones that kind of following chronologically in this movie, we had the canary trick, and the boy says, "Where's his brother?" All right, and this is for both magicians. We have Borden has the brother, right, but Algier kills his double every night, or once he starts doing the show.
There's the coin.
Yeah.
Christian Bale has the coin. After the kid asks about the brother,
Yeah.
the bird's brother, he pulls out a double-sided coin.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
says never
it's-
tell anybody the trick, because once they know the trick,
Yeah.
you're useless to them.
The whole relationship with Christian Bale and his wife, or
Mhm.
Christian Bale and his brothers and his wife, she
The
knows
throuple.
she knows when the "I love you" is insincere or not.
Yeah.
So she can even tell that there's a lacking authenticity sometimes,
Sure.
even though she may not have been able to tell them apart. She knows that right now you don't mean so that was also a foreshadowing that
Yeah.
something's different.
Yeah.
And then she also says a line. I had the quote, but I don't know what part of the movie it was, but she's like, "I don't know what you are," or she says something like not who you are, but what are you?
Yeah, I know what you are is the last fight they have right before she hangs herself.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of dialogue that I did. Okay, so I watched this movie once. This was the
Okay.
first time I'd seen this movie, and I did not know the spoilers. I went in not knowing the twist at the end. And knowing it's Christopher Nolan, I was trying to be super analytical about it. I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't distracted. I was watching this movie. I still assumed it wasn't a double. I was like, oh, a twin? I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking more complex. I was thinking more intricate than just a twin versus a double, that double scenario.
Yeah.
So I didn't see it coming. And then especially at the end, then the cloning part at the end was also kind of oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a shocker. I'm just okay.
It's really interesting because spoilers for Glass Onion. Have you seen Glass Onion yet, Doc?
Yes.
Okay. So we're not spoiling it for you, but maybe for people listening at home. After watching it, Ben Shapiro went on a Twitter tear where he was complaining about the writing and the politics in it and blah, blah, blah.
Really?
Yeah. And he's wrong about almost everything he said.
Okay.
But one of the things he complained about was that the twin sister is too lazy. And I think he was wrong because the twin sister was executed well. But I think the same thing here. You might say, oh, having a twin, you can write yourself out of any situation. It's kind of lazy. But he foreshadows it the whole time. And including the line of once you know, it's actually very obvious. And, he tells the audience throughout the movie, once you know what the trick isn't interesting anymore. It's kind of disappointing.
Right.
And that's exactly what he delivered on. As a magician, Doc, do you run into that a lot? I know magicians don't typically share a whole lot of tricks, but I know that you share beginner magic and how to survive your first show, ebooks and things like that.
To comment on one thing about the movie, I like the twins thing.
Mm-hmm.
That felt like it was a good fit.
Okay.
I agree.
That had a wonderful bit of that's who Kaiser Sose is feeling to it.
Mm-hmm.
I dug that. Introducing the sci-fi element, it didn't work for me.
I agree.
And I'm saying that trying to put aside the oversensitivities being a magician. As far as if I understand your question, you want to how do I feel about sharing of secrets, that sort of thing?
How do you feel about the claim in the movie that once people know the trick, they don't really have much use for you, and it's boring after that?
Well, that's kind of an ugly way to put it, but I understand the movie's verbal shorthand. I mean, they have no use for you. Kill yourself, But I think there's an argument to be made. Once you know how the trick is done, you are no longer tricked, so it is no longer a trick. Right. Because magic, really, the experience of magic doesn't occur in the hands or on stage. It occurs in the viewer's mind. Mm. So if someone's watching this and they know how it's done, then yeah, it loses something for them.
At most, they can appreciate the performance of it.
Sure, and it's not to say myself as a magician can't watch other magic acts and enjoy them, even though I know how it's done. Just my appreciation is going to be different.
Sure.
Yeah, it's just going to have a different feel to it. But I think, yeah, when people ask me, and my answer is joking in the sense of telling truth on the slant. They ask me, well, why won't you tell me how the trick is done? Job security.
Yeah.
But the truth is sometimes how it's done, and I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but how it's done is more of the trick than what was done. The psychology of it, and I'm thinking specifically now of my first appearance on Fool Us. The psychology of that, I think, was as strong or stronger than the actual mechanics of how I made it happen. But a lot of tricks are like that. You know, I've been probably nailed by psychology more than good psychology in a trick than I have by mechanics.
Interesting.
That's fascinating.
There's that kind of resembles a line towards the end of the movie. And I want to know how much you resonate with this. When Angier is dying, he says to Borden, "The audience knows the truth. The world is simple, miserable, solid all the way through. But if you could fool them, even for a second, then you could make them wonder. Then you get to see something very special. It was the look on their faces." Do you resonate with that, or do you think that that's an overly poetic way of putting something that's much simpler?
Well, I think magic is an art, and as such, things aren't hard and fast or particularly universal. About 10 or so years ago, I switched my billing from magician comic to comic magician because I thought that was a better descriptor of my stage show. And subsequent to that, in 2019, I was very grateful for this particular reason to get the Fool Us trophy, because that gave me a very shorthand bona fide to say, yeah, I can do this. Ben and Teller, seal of approval, thanks, because there's really, what is the metric of foolization? There's not a lot out there. I think for some performers, that sense of wonder is there. For me, I'm a comic that does magic. Now, that doesn't mean I don't do some great magic. And I can say great magic because I'm this library behind me. That is the shoulders of giants that I stand upon. Okay.
Right.
So that's not hubris saying that. I mean, a little bit. It's like 10%. I'm a bit full of myself. But the other 90, humility. I want audiences to have that wow moment. Moment. Y'all get it right. Movement. Yes. Wow. Yes. Think of the letter A-E-I-O-U. It's a vowel movement. Thank you. I want the audience to have that feeling of, wow, how did that happen? Incredible. But not in the sense of, if you hearken back to the 1970s with Doug Henning. And I'm not saying that to make fun of Doug Henning. He was an icon, but just a cheap impression, illusion kind of thing. He seemed to really want people to experience that, and that's not where I'm coming from. I blather a lot. You guys should interrupt more.
No,
You've got so much great things to say.
We're just taking this in. This is great. All right, so I've got a quote here from the movie. Just taking a little turn here and stuff as we continue to dissect the movie here. Nikola Tesla, played by David Bowie, by the way.
Yeah.
Which I thought the whole Tesla arc, pun intended, of the story, I think was the least favorable part. But I did like which actually this predated the Hobbit movies.
Yeah.
But I did like when Andy Serkis asked the question, guess what's in my pocket?
Yeah.
Because he's now lost to that game twice. because
that was a nice thing when when Hugh Jackman's walking off. Yeah.
I appreciated the Andy Serkis thing. But Nikola Tesla says society tolerates only one change at a time, and I just like I paused the movie. I think that's probably one of the only few moments where I like wait I gotta play that again. I just like that was a very profound statement, but I don't know if that's necessarily. I think it's a statement that I would disagree with, as far as like what something that the movie is substantiating and
a truth claim in the movie that I think rings pretty hollow.
Society tolerates only one change at a time.
So I've been watching this series, The Men Who Built America. It's an old series that History Channel put together.
Yes,
2012. And one of the men who built America that the movie explores is Edison.
Thomas
Edison was financed by J.P. Morgan. Tesla worked for him and then went alone. Worked for Westinghouse, or was financed by Westinghouse, and the two of them had their current war. But while that change is happening from kerosene to electric, we're having all kinds of different changes leading up into the Industrial Revolution. So I don't even think it makes sense for Tesla to have said that, because he would have lived through a dozen changes in his short lifetime.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have David Bowie playing Tesla, which is like layers of odd upon odd.
The Lizard King.
I mean, whatever he says, the sandwich is a unicorn. You must trust it. Whoa! and wait, think about this. There was a hidden twin in that movie that voluntarily dismembered himself, but that wasn't the weirdest thing. So the movie, excuse me. That we know that point is wrong. People can only accept one change at a time. That movie's asking me to accept two. The glove doesn't fit. You must acquit.
Yeah, I think the writing for Tesla was sloppy there. I don't think that rings true.
Yeah.
I did some research into Tesla in Colorado Springs, because that's based on truth. So when he was in Colorado Springs, he was financed by John Jacob Astor IV. Now, I didn't know who John Jacob Astor was.
I don't know that name.
Do you know the name John Jacob Astor?
It's like old money name. That's all that's coming to mind.
It's very old money. So John Jacob Astor IV was the richest man to die on the Titanic.
Oh.
And
that's where I know the name. Okay.
He's the great-grandson of John Jacob Astor I, who was the first multimillionaire in America. He had a fur monopoly.
Wow.
He smuggled opium out of China and bought a bunch of real estate in New York. And like the Waldorf Astoria, anything with Astoria in its name is named after this family.
Huh.
So Tesla's financed by John Jacob Astor IV in Colorado, and Edison was financed by J.P. Morgan, which became General Electric. And I just think it's really interesting because it's the economist side of me that never stops talking. I look at this, and there's no money there for Edison to do this, right? Like what he's studying, what he's working on isn't generating value right now. It will potentially. And people with lots of money, that's what they finance in. That's what they put their money into, right? And so if we democratize the economy, right, and redistributed all the wealth, well, now the money's no longer available for people like Tesla, for people like Edison, for people like Musk to do big research that really pushes the boundaries of what we have. And so that was something that was on there that like was just sticking in my craw.
Mm-hmm.
It's unstuck.
I got that monkey off my back.
But other than all of this, it was the finest movie I've ever seen.
I was definitely entertained. From an entertainment standpoint, it's an entertaining movie.
Yeah,
I like historical pieces, like period pieces. Like I like stuff that's not set in modern times. Like I appreciated all that stuff. Like I mean, the cast was awesome outside of some of the weird writing for David Bowie and stuff. Like a face that I hadn't seen in a while was the wife that died at the beginning. Hugh Jackman's wife, Piper Perabo. She was
Piper Perabo.
That's the actress's name. She's from Coyote Ugly, and I hadn't seen her since Coyote Ugly, which is a Jerry Bruckheimer movie. I had 4 sisters. It was inevitable for me to watch all
Is
those
that
movies.
your next episode?
Coyote Ugly, yes. Oh, it's a Jerry Bruckheimer movie, so I mean, it's
Sure.
not on the top 250, but yeah. So just like I haven't seen that face in a while. But yeah, it was an entertaining movie. In all the movies we watched so far, I rank the movies we do on the podcast. This one takes second place.
Yeah.
Yeah, in all the ones we watched so far, like so.
What's number one?
Into the Wild.
Into the Wild still holds number
Sean
one.
Penn,
for you.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's probably one of my favorites. as well.
That movie was incredible.
There's a line when Danton is first doing
The Great Danton.
the Great Danton is first doing his trick that involves a body double, the drunk, and he does this preamble. He says, "Alas, I cannot claim the next feat as illusion. You'll see no trickery employed, merely a technique familiar to certain citizens of the Orient and various holy men of the Himalayas." And that line, I started cracking up because it's hack, but it's like I've seen magicians that lean more into the hack and camp do it, and it's a great line, I think, and it made me think Steve Martin. I can't place what movie or where it's tickling that itch, but it feels like a Steve Martin line.
It might be Martin. Martin's a pretty accomplished sleight of hand magician.
Is he?
Oh yeah, his first job as a teenager, I believe he worked in the magic shop at Disneyland.
Holy cow!
I mean, I know he worked there, but I don't know if that was his first job.
Sure.
That type of scripting was not uncommon for magicians of that era.
Right.
I mean, think about it. In the 1940s and 50s, you would have "See the Tattooed Man,"
Yeah.
and that was an amazing thing. Now let's turn on the Discovery Channel.
Yeah.
You know, that the mystery of things that are distant stopped a long time ago. You know, the world got a lot smaller.
It's true.
But 100+ years ago, when that took place, I think it's supposed to be in the 1880s or 90s. Yeah, that was a common thing. I mean, I would say today the equivalent of it, and I don't think it's a hack thing. It just depends how it's done. Is having some sort of pseudoscience BS.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'll tell you, in one of the routines I do, I tell you what, I up front in my show, and hopefully, if you're able to make it to the show in February, you'll see this. I say, now listen, I want to get this out of the way. I'm going to tell you how I do one of the tricks because I got to do this up front because I don't want you being ticked off with me. Because if you know how the trick is done, well, you're going to think I suck. And if you don't know how it's done, you're irritated. So I'm just going to explain this first trick. And I say it's done by body language. Now, it's evidently clear, like 10 seconds into the body language part, that's not how it's done. But yeah, that's a common framework of just using something larger
Yeah.
to
It's
explain the
storytelling.
method.
Yeah.
Back then, and you may or may not know, but back then in that era of magic, was it a joke with the audience, or was the audience not in on the idea that this has nothing to do with the Orient?
Well, considering there were people who were not Asian pretending to be Asian, I don't think and the people bought it. I don't think the audience was in on the joke.
That might be the case, yeah. I hadn't considered that. They say in the movie Obsession is a young man's game. I'm still relatively young. I don't think I'm obsessed with anything.
I'd say that obsession is not age specific. I can think of people in my parents' generation and people older that I've interacted with that are like they have their vices. They have their vices. Like it's like I know a vice can be defined differently than obsession, but like something that that's I feel like it's a thing though. Like
Sure.
like and I don't think it's just a young man's thing. I think.
And my dad's no spring chicken, and he gets plenty obsessed with things.
Yeah.
It kind of goes in waves.
It's like beyond the hobby, like beyond the hobby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my dad said idealism is a young man's game, and I think that's more true than obsession. You just get too cynical.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Doc?
Well, I'm probably the age of your dad. I don't feel all that cynical right now. I think obsession. Most people as they get older, or many people, their family obligations grow,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a famous magician amongst magicians, been gone 20 plus years now, who was kind of like a patriarchal figure in 20th century magic, but he was also known for just, you read between the lines. Well, I won't read between the lines. I'll just quote one of his kids, grown man, who said, "As a dad, he was a great magician."
Mm.
And I heard him say that in a biography of this man, and it just cuts you to the quick if you're a dad.
Yeah.
It's like what an epitaph. So
Well, that is heavy.
Yeah, it's be obsessed when you don't have so many responsibilities that need you. But
Well, there's that line from Tesla where he's speaking to engineers and he says, "Have you considered the cost?" And he's like, "I can pay any price." And he's like, "No, have you considered the cost? Not money, but the cost that it's going to take it." There's a saying where I work. A boss accidentally said it, I think, and it made me reconsider my position there. But he said, "If you won't sacrifice for what's most important to you, then you'll sacrifice what's most important to you." And I heard him say that and thought, well, this isn't what's most important to me. And if I stick around here, I'm going to have to sacrifice what is.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad traveled a lot when I was young for work, and he'd be gone for months at a time for work. And for him, this is a huge regret of his. And now my brother, my sister, we're grown. We have kids of our own, and he's asked us, and apologized for being absent and not around as much as he'd like. But for us, I don't remember it. Right. So for me, you're still all-star dad. But I think that there is an age where that's no longer going to work. And the guy you're talking about, I think, continued to be a great magician well into the years that he was supposed to be a great father.
Mm.
And you can be both, but his obsession, I mean, I don't want to get into all the details of him and speak ill of the dead, but it's really commonly known by anyone with an ounce of magic history. And yeah, I'm obsessed with being average.
Okay.
No, I don't. That's horrible. Strike that. I hate that.
Obsessed with mediocrity.
No, I'm obsessed with balance.
Sure.
You got to have the right balance. And I think the arts sometimes attract people that get too unbalanced in one way or another. But there's a lot of areas in life that are like that.
Yeah. Do you think the arts are more prone to obsession?
Would sports be considered arts, or?
No, I guess you're right. Yeah,
and athleticism, and that can be obsession.
Musk, we've seen in recent things, kind of basically expects obsession from his employees.
Yeah.
I guess obsession is
career.
Well, it's almost mandatory for greatness. If you want to be a name that's remembered in generations to come, you have to be obsessive.
Now, I mean, not to reference this movie more than we should, but in Glass Onion, that was a reoccurring theme of there was that. This movie was recorded before Elon Musk's.
Yeah, it had nothing to do with that,
right? But it essentially they were showing this fictional Amazon-like company.
Yeah,
and they were talking about what you just said. They I lost.
Oh yeah, what's the line? I want to be mentioned in the same breath as Mona Lisa.
It just going to withholding nothing to achieve, even hurting, backstabbing your friends.
Yeah,
so it was the same theme in the movie we watched just recently.
Absolutely. But yeah, what would you say about that? The movie kind of seems to indicate that if you want to be legendary, you have to be obsessive. Do you think that's true?
No. I mean, if you're defining obsessive as ignoring your responsibility, there are plenty of high achievers that don't ignore their family responsibilities.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Sometimes you burn the midnight oil and you do the dad thing, and then you stay up till 2 a.m. and you do the work thing.
Yeah.
Sure.
It's just what it is,
there's a trend among kind of like the larger than life characters through history that they are, or at least they're remembered as being very single minded and way more driven than their contemporaries. I think the drive is, well, it's the old line that there's no such thing as luck. It's preparation and opportunity, right? If you've done the work already, that when the opportunity comes along, you can take advantage of it, and not everybody's ready for the opportunity. So you look at these big names through history. There's a lot of luck, but a lot of drive as well, and a lot of them seem to have pretty messy family lives. I think that as a young father, that work-life balance is something that's I'm trying to prioritize early because you can't make up for it after the fact.
Well, maybe some of noticing those messy family lives are the same reason we don't rubberneck a good driving.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we tend to remember the bad things, and I think just success in general. I often think back to an experience I had. It was in 8th grade. I'm old enough to have been in a gym class where there was a rope hanging from the ceiling and you had to climb up it for a grade, which I look back upon that and think, was this invented before lawyers? It is just the most, here, go up 30 feet in the air, hope you make it down.
Good luck.
I could never do it. I was a chubby kid, not that strong, big, but not strong enough to pull up my weight. There was a kid by the name of Johnny who climbed up there without his legs. I mean, he had legs. He didn't use his legs to help him climb. Just to be clear on that. He just let his legs flail out, and he just used his arm and ham strength to climb up there. Now, this was 8th grade, and he climbed back down. And I remember thinking at that moment, it's not just training.
Yeah.
Because this is 8th grade. Some folks are just born with a better slice of the gene pool.
Sure.
Or have certain strengths in the gene pool. And I think that's true not only physically, I think that can be true emotionally, intellectually. And it's really easy to take that for granted and be judgmental about things. I'm really going off on a tangent here, but you remember it was a couple of years ago, there was this, someone took a video of this girl. She took ice cream out of a freezer from a supermarket, licked it, and put it back in. And there was so much, what is wrong with her? She's evil, blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, nah, just a dumb kid.
Yeah.
She just did a foolish, dumb kid thing.
And there was a camera.
And there was a camera there, there was, yeah. Okay, that's the limit of my profundity. Carry on.
What are you looking at there, Jeff?
I'm just trying to look up some facts here. Doing a deep dive to see if there's a connection to Clockwork Orange.
Oh, a segment on our show, a beloved segment of ours, is how is this movie like Clockwork Orange? A movie that Jeff and I, it was our second movie, and we both very much did not like it. Every movie so far, we've either accidentally or intentionally stumbled on a way that it shares similarities with A Clockwork Orange. This particular movie I already looked up does not have any shared cast, production team, or anything.
Yeah, it does not cross.
However, there are some corresponding trends. So, like in A Clockwork Orange, the movie is not told in chronological order.
Right.
It jumps around a lot.
At least three separate storylines happening.
And also, like A Clockwork Orange, it spends a lot of time dwelling on obsession and violence and power. That's about it, though. That's all I got for you.
Yeah, but we said it, so
we said it. Yeah, we tied it in.
We got it.
And then one other thing that stuck out at me, and I think it's probably my last insight, and then we can, unless you have more, Doc, we can move towards.
I'm all good. I'm good.
The duplicator machine.
Yes, Tesla's machine.
It reminded me of DuckTales. There's an episode called Do Re Mi.
Never seen DuckTales.
You've never seen
DuckTales? I
DuckTales?
know of it, but I've never seen DuckTales.
So in the original DuckTales, there's an episode called Do Re Mi where the kids learn a valuable lesson about loose monetary policy and inflation. They found a duplicator machine and they start duplicating coins and spending those coins, and before long, the money loses all value.
I thought it reminded me of something that it probably is very similar to. That you ever been to like COSI?
Yeah.
Or the Science Center, and it's the electric ball that you touch your hands on, and it makes your hair stick up.
Oh, the Tesla bulb?
Yeah, so I mean, it's essentially the same thing, but like less bolts and more just hands on. So like that's the first thing I thought of when I saw that metal ball.
Yeah.
And then
I think that's called a Van de Graaff generator.
Yes.
I won't question you on that. But yeah, so that's yeah. It was visually cool to watch. Like, I mean, it was a pretty cool intro for David Bowie to walk through the lightning.
Yeah.
Like, that was a pretty cool introduction to Tesla's character, but
He's a star man.
that was probably the best part of his character. Yeah. In the show.
Yeah. I'm betting all that lightning was put in post-production. I don't say, listen, I know it's a risk here. We may electrocute him, but we have insurance.
Now there is a fun fact like that connects. I don't know if you can edit this out if you have to. For like, so David Bowie. So we're here in Wayne County, Ohio. David Bowie back in the day had a child that went to College of Worcester. Like, and I was trying to 7 degrees of bacon. I was trying to see if like we could connect ourselves. And
we probably know somebody that knows somebody that knows Zoe Bowie.
Knows somebody. But yeah, so but David Bowie has been to Wayne County to the College of Worcester to watch his daughter graduate. This was years ago. Obviously, he has passed on since then.
Backwoods nowhere, Ohio.
But yeah, so I thought that was a fun fact that Bowie's been to Wayne County.
Why do people from Wayne County always insist on shoehorning that into a conversation? Just to throw that into our non-Bowie attending counties.
It's all we got.
Yeah.
It's the only thing happening here. David Bowie came here once, maybe.
He gave us an inch. Yeah. We got one photo of it. We're taking it with forever.
Are you guys Cleveland Browns fans?
I'm not a sports guy. If I were to root for a team, I would root for the Browns, but I don't.
But I know you're a Steelers fan.
Congratulations on the win yesterday.
I was in Cleveland. I want to say thanks like I did something. I was a part of it.
I was in Cleveland yesterday, and we went to a place for lunch, and the game was on, and I forgot that I was in Cleveland during a Cleveland's-Pittsburgh game, and we had to wait an hour no matter where we wanted to eat for lunch that had a TV in it. So that's what makes me not like sports. If it gets in the way of me getting food. We were set on this one specific restaurant, but they're like, yeah, the game's on right now, so it's going to be a while. I was like, all right, fine, we'll wait. We waited. It was worth it. The food was good.
Nice.
But you can use that for what it's worth. But so Christopher Nolan, one last little fact here, and then we'll get to our final questions as we.
Christopher Nolan ever been to Wayne County?
Not that I know of. Now Matthew McConaughey
probably Wayne County, Michigan.
Matthew McConaughey has. Completely unrelated. But yeah, I know.
I live close by to the set of The Walking Dead. Does that count?
Nice.
Wait,
that's your claim to fame.
You're in Atlanta?
Yeah, I'm just south of Atlanta. I'm in Noonan and Sonoy, which is where they shot The Walking Dead. In fact, left field.
I love it.
My wife and I had been talking about moving south for years. We came down here in 2017. Totally on a lark, little getaway to be extras on The Walking Dead.
Yes. We
stayed a few extra days, and we started checking out the area, and that's when we decided to move down here.
That's fantastic. Did you ever get to be an extra?
Yeah, we were extras. I forget which season. Did you watch the show?
How about the last season?
We were saviors. We were in Negan's army.
Oh, did you get to meet? Tell us a little bit about that. Like, did you get to meet?
Well, Nelson, Jeff's become so animated at this point now. Oh. Well, okay. Do you remember? This is like I don't know, 5 seasons before it ended. The thing where I can't remember the characters' names, but the guns didn't work. In the final climactic scene, the guy who was with Rick, he was now with Negan, and he was the brain, and he made all these guns, but none of the guns worked. The bullets. Eugene, yeah. And Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who played Negan.
Yeah, he's a great actor.
As extras, we don't interact with these people.
Okay, so you didn't get to meet Jeffrey Dean Morgan, or
well, no, he's a very cool guy. Some people basically were told don't be fanboys. which I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm just doing this a day with my wife.
Yeah.
I'll fanboy her. We're not gonna, whatever. So, but he's just standing around. He's like, and this makes no sense unless you're familiar with the scene where none of the guns worked. He goes, "Yep. Think they would have just checked one gun."
Yeah, he's got a point.
But it was a fun experience. Yeah, it's fun. Met some nice people.
Did you go to Nick and Norman's, the restaurant?
Yeah, we've eaten there a few times.
Yeah, that's
Nice
awesome.
place.
Yeah, no, my wife and I are big fans of that show. I have not finished the last season. We've cut our cable and we've gotten behind, so we are going to binge the last season. But that's really cool. You live down that area. Yeah, it's also the same area as the Vampire Diaries.
Oh, I'm not familiar with that.
I think the Vampire Diaries is in that same area of Georgia, if I'm not mistaken.
And I think the Jack Black movie, was it called The House with Clocks in the Walls?
Oh, yeah.
That was shot in town in Noonan and
Right
one of the
on.
local houses here.
That's so cool. Well, this has been fun. So every episode, and if you've listened to some previous episodes, we know we kind of wrap it up with these these vague umbrella type questions, but we just want to kind of get your overall opinion about the movie and stuff. So the first question is, would you recommend this movie? So as a magician, as a father, as just from where you are, as a breathing human, would you recommend this movie?
It's fun escapism. I can put aside the magician hat. I mean, what I feel about the Tesla thing is, what I feel about it. But it's a fun evening. Here's how I used to rate movies back in the day. Would you go to the theater? Would you go to the bargain theater? Would you watch it at home? Would you pay for it at home? Would you watch it at home for free? Would you ignore it?
That's a nice scale.
It's very economical.
Yep.
My Messizian brothers. But anyway, yeah, it's a fun escapist flick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my favorite, but that's whatever.
Nelson, would you recommend, like, where did this fall in your entertainment value or life value?
I haven't seen it in about 10 years, and I don't think I need to see it for another 10.
Okay.
But I think it's worth a watch.
It's worth a watch. Okay. Same here. As someone who likes Nolan, I can understand why this one kind of slipped under the radar. It wasn't horrible. And of the 10 movies we watched, this is our 10th episode. Of the 10 movies we watched, it's probably one of the most entertaining ones that fit into the movies that I would rewatch. So I probably would rewatch it. I do think Lindsay, my wife, would like it. So I would rewatch it with her, but it's not my favorite Nolan film. It wasn't earth-shattering or, mind-blowing. So
Yeah.
the next question is, it is PG-13. Would you change the rating? So as a dad, is it worse than PG-13? Is it, no, it's not bad at all? Like, where would this movie fall in your rating, the rating scale?
I'm not sure of the current definitions of PG-13 and all that, so I'll just base it on this. I wouldn't want my young kids with me, my older teenage boys, but not.
Yeah.
Some of the woman hangs herself, and some of the more jarring death images.
Yeah, I agree.
That's a bit heavy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
The language is
And any of my friends that have doves.
Yeah.
If you own an aviary, I just don't think.
Trigger warning for people with birds.
The pro
real quick, that has historical precedent. The man, and I think I got this right. I hope no magic geeks come and storm your castle.
We don't have a castle.
The man that invented that trick they were talking about, which, by the way, the version they had was way overwrought. It looked like it was what they did was like trying to cripple somebody. Let's put this much tension force on something that its fulcrum is your back. Anyway, it was this one magician invented it, was accused of killing birds when he did it. The truth is, back then he did.
Okay.
And they were small birds, not doves, small cage. So he was made to do it in court. He said it doesn't kill birds, and he was made to do it in court. And if I remember my magic history, that time he lucked out, the bird didn't croak.
Oh no!
So he got off. Release him. He's not a bird killer, at least that one.
Most of the time, or some of the time. Wow.
Next question. I'm sorry.
No,
that's great.
Hey, you're not a problem. Like, 2 more questions here. Has it aged well? I'll take this one first here. Like, I would say, yeah, it's aged fine. Just only because not many years have passed. The special effects were pretty good. Like, and obviously for a movie that was set in the 1890s, it was believable. So, like, I would say, yeah, it's nothing in the movie was like, ooh, that's cringy. Or so, yeah, I'd say it has aged well, and it's holding its time right now.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think that the term Chinaman that shows up in it, I think that probably wouldn't get written in today.
Right. Well,
but apart from that,
I think it would, though, because like that's a dialogue that was used like that's the way they communicate back then. Not saying it's appropriate. I'm not saying it's.
I get
good,
that. I'm saying
like,
if Christopher Nolan made this movie today, he'd leave that out.
Okay.
Because I think he avoids racial narratives and conversations for the most part.
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think 1890s timepiece it's
do you think it holds up?
Yeah, I think it holds up. The exception you had, I'm not sure how much that would be objected to because it is a period piece.
Right.
But I don't know.
I was thinking about Tarantino using prolifically the N-word, usually said by Samuel L. Jackson, and people have issues with it, even when they're period pieces and said by a black man. That's more where I was thinking of it. But that word also does have a lot more emotional baggage to it.
I'm going to be honest, and this take it for what it's worth. I didn't know Chinaman was offensive.
No, yeah.
When I heard the line, it didn't even strike me. Like it's like I'm out of the loop on that word specifically.
Yeah.
So that one for me, so maybe that's a lesser known. Like, I'm glad I know now.
I keep a updated list of racial slurs. Let me know if
you frequent the Urban Dictionary. Yeah. All right, so the last question here, the very vague question is: would this be in your personal top 250 movies? Doc, have you seen 250 movies?
Well, yes, I have seen.
Would you put this in your top 250 movies,
yeah.
Doc? If you were to write a list right now?
Nah.
Okay.
No, I mean it was no, I wouldn't. It was an enjoyable time. All irritations aside, and I admit some of our discussion now has given me. I still don't like the parts I didn't like. I still feel strongly about the Tesla thing. Felt shoehorned in, but it gives me more appreciation for the things which were properly foreshadowed.
Yeah.
Talking about Chen Su, all of that, how he lives this part all the time. That and that being echoed in the Christian Bale character.
Mm-hmm.
But I still wouldn't put it in the top 250.
I've found with a lot of the movies that we've covered so far, that's kind of where I land. Talking about it makes me appreciate it more than right after having watched it.
Right.
But I still for me, this isn't top 250.
I liked it. It was entertaining. Like Michael Caine, I like the casting. Like I found it very entertaining. So far, like it's definitely, I would definitely watch it again. So for me, like I think if it's rewatchable, I think I'd put it'd be in the top 250 for me.
Mm-hmm.
We'll find out in another 240 movies if this gets kicked off. But as of right now, for me, I would. I feel like to be a Nolan fan too, I have to.
Yeah.
And I want to
double down.
Yeah, I got to double down on it. So
ABC, always double down.
Okay. Huh. So so we plugged your show already. Let's say that one more time. Doc, when are you going to be in Northeast Ohio?
February 4th. He's going to be in Chardon, Ohio. The link to that show is in the show notes.
Awesome. Yes. And anything else? Where can people find you, Doc?
DocDixon.com.
Love it. Awesome. This has been great. I like watching movies. I can't think of a movie that I've watched where I know stuff about the topic being handled. So It's always fun to talk about movies. Talk with people about movies who have like expertise in something. Like,
sure,
I don't really consider myself an expert in anything. Like, so this has been fun to get an inside perspective on something that I know nothing about, but I do enjoy magic. I love a good magic show.
Well, on February 4th, you're in for a treat.
Who? What's going to have to happen?
I hear Doc Dixon's in town.
What? Why didn't you say that before?
Thank you so much for being available, making yourself available to us, Doc.
Thanks. Same here. And when you review Cheaper by the Dozen or movies where people have a lot of kids, I have 7 kids. I'll be there for you.
Where's my hours?
I'll take a look at our list and put you in the margin for any movie about lots of kids.
The Brady Bunch movie.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wait. I'm trying to think. Oh, and Rodney Dangerfield in Old School.
Like the Will Ferrell Old School?
Yeah.
I've never seen it.
No. I'm sorry. Rodney Dangerfield Back to School.
Okay.
I was trying to think.
I know
was
Rodney
he in
Dangerfield.
Old School?
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Every 4 years when the Summer Olympics, I tune into this diving, just hoping for a triple Lindy.
I don't get that reference. I might be.
You've never seen it?
I'm sorry.
Stop the podcast. Just go watch.
We'll go watch it. All right. Well, this is
Thanks, guys.
With that, I've been
Thank you,
Nelson,
Doc.
Jeff, and thank you, Doc Dixon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, this is Nelson. During the edit, I noticed that at the end of the recording, Jeff and I didn't announce what our next episode's going to be. So, without any further ado, 1993 Groundhog Day, link in the description. Thanks.
Thanks for listening. We had a great time putting this together for you.
To join the conversation, find us on Facebook and Instagram at Silver Screen Biases.
And on Twitter at Screen Biases.
We believe in value for value, so if you found value in our show, we ask you to consider supporting us.
Links to our social media and support can be found in the show notes.